Talking about an issue that I struggle with, and I know pretty much, I think it's 80 to 90% of the population struggles with this issue. Some people call it Beyonce booty. I call it, I usually call it duck butt. When I talk about it in class, I'll say no duck butt. And when I say that, I'm talking about this, right? I mean, it looks cute when you're like walking around town, like this, but it actually can really hurt your low back. And I actually had an issue not this past January, but the January before. So a little over a year ago, where I was teaching a ton of yoga. I was skiing like probably every third day. I was basically what I was doing was I was really activating through my quads all the time, which resulted in a really short hip flexor. I was shortening my hip flexor and I had a lot of tightness here. And as a result, when you start getting tightness here and you don't consciously think about strengthening your glutes and strengthening your low core, what starts to happen is your body compensates by going like this, right? So now you're always kind of walking around with a little Beyonce booty. And the problem with that is you're actually exacerbating the problem. So you can see when you have a strong core and you have strong glutes, if you're activating through the glutes, you can stand more straight. And so, but people with a six pack can have anterior pelvic tilt because again, you've got short hip flexors, your hip extensors are lengthening, your quads and your hip flexors are maybe overactive or overactivated. And when we do yoga, if we don't really think about activating the glutes, maybe even the hamstrings, they can be weak because, right, when we're forward folding, we're lengthening through the glutes and the hamstrings. So we're sort of taking tension out of them instead of activating them. So I teach booty. Booty yoga is an opportunity to really, activate, scoop the glutes and activate through the hamstrings because it's a strengthening class. So that is the reason I sort of try to balance my classes out through the week where I do lengthening and I do strengthening. So also the rectus abs. Those are the ones that go all the way up the front of the body. And when those are not activated, again, you're going to start to dump back into this low back. So my husband and I actually started today. We're doing a challenge with each other. It's like a suck the gut challenge. So if we see each other, like this, and you know what it also is. My husband has a lot of tightness through the pecs. He has a lot of strength right here. If you've ever actually seen him, you probably can actually visually see he's often tight through the chest. And so, sorry to talk about Greg, but I probably should have asked his permission. But so he tends to, like, the tightness pulls him forward. And so he really needs to think about, again, this helps with anterior pelvic tilt too, bringing the shoulders down and away and sending that heart forward. And so that automatically, when you take all that tightness out of the chest, it also will help you get out of this duck butt or Beyonce booty. Now, some people do have posterior pelvic tilt, and that's when you're like too far forward. That's pretty rare though. Like I have one friend from high school who does that. I've never seen anybody else do that. But it's pretty, oh no, I have a friend from college too who does this. It's pretty rare. But it's, again, it's a different type of imbalance. Most people don't have that one. So I want you guys to think about, I'll give you 2 exercises to work on this. The first exercise, and if you want to join me doing this, please do, is just a bridge. And we're going to end class today with the bridge. So when you're doing your bridge today, though, I want you to think about activating through the glutes. So bridge posture, you're going to always make sure you can brush your heels with your fingertips. And a lot of times, I see people with their knees going out as they lift. You want to actually bring the knees towards each other and lift. And then sometimes we think about activating through the front of the quads in bridge, but I'm going to ask today, just because we're talking about anterior pelvic tilt, that you activate through the glutes and really try to, like, pretend you're pushing your hips and your sits bones through the front of your body. And you can breathe here. You can also take the shoulders underneath the body, clasp the hands, and then push up. So this is a great way to work on this low back and, strengthening it. Now, another thing, it doesn't honestly feel like much, but when you're down from your bridge, think about taking the spine down. Think about, like, actually take your fingers, put them into your belly button. You might want to take one hand and see how much of a space you have in between the low back and the mat. The bigger the arch here, the more tension you're carrying around in your back. So as we do yoga, as we do things like foam rolling, you can start to feel the tension coming out of the back. You can start to lengthen through the back. And then the final step of this exercise is to just feel that belly button actually pulling back towards the spine and feel every vertebrae of the spine sinking down into the mat. Now, you're going to always have a natural curve to the spine. We don't want it to be completely straight. But we do, when we're working on anterior pelvic tilt, we do want to start to release some of that pressure that's been building up there. So this is a great way to do it. It's also a really teeny tiny strengthening exercise for the low belly. And then I will take it to some yoga postures that are commonly done incorrectly. I try to cue for this, but I want to make sure in today's class I'll even more point these out to you guys. So the first one would be plank. So if everybody could just come into your plank, shoulders over wrists, heels stacked over the balls of the feet. And the most common thing I see people doing here is dumping into the low back like this. So you don't want to do that. You want the hips and the shoulders at the same height. So that's the first thing to notice. And then from here, actually think about creating that ugly looking butt. It's not a cute Beyonce butt here. It's an ugly looking butt, right? So you're pulling it forward. You're scooping that pelvis. And then from here, take it to down dog. And we'll go into high crescent lunge. You should be able to go directly from plank to down dog without moving your feet. And then high crescent lunge, inhale that right leg up. Exhale, plant the foot in place of the right hand or right where that right thumb is. You can scooch it up if it didn't make it. Now, I always cue left heel over left ball of the foot. I'm in a runner's lunge now. And if we take it all the way up, however, if you have anterior pelvic tilt, it would actually behoove you to start out with that left leg bent. Do you see how that changes where my pelvis is? Here, I might have the desire to tilt back. You do want eventually this leg to lift, but you want to tuck the pelvis even here. So if you have a tight hip flexor, bending that knee is going to help you get there. And then when you're able to stay there, you can strengthen that back leg. Okay, so that is high crescent. Low crescent is literally just dropping that knee. Same thing here. You never want this right knee to go past the right ankle. You want it to be tucked because we're working on lengthening the psoas. And I do see a lot of people coming here, and sometimes I do it myself. When you come here, there could be the desire or the wish to sort of, like I'm doing right now, tilt that pelvis back and just really, I love really big dramatic poses because I do feel that yoga is a way to express yourself. However, when we're doing those big dramatic poses, we just have to focus on alignment. So again, make sure you're thinking about bringing those hips through the front of the body. You can still take a big bend here, but just making sure the hips are in the right place. You're going to actually feel it more through that left hip flexor if you're aligned with a scooped pelvis. Cat-cow is another one. So in cat, it's a really exaggerated exhale, scoop the pelvis. So you can really feel it there. Inhale, cow, and you are going to go into posterior pelvic tilt here. So you can kind of see what that feels like. But if you activate the glutes and the abs, you won't hurt yourself here. So inhale here and then exhale. And one exercise you can do is just try to isolate. Just isolate that pelvis and just do the tucks without doing the shoulders. And think about those glutes and think about the abs. Finally, chair. Big toes to touch, little space between the heels. Inhale up. And I see people go like this, right? Because it feels better. It feels like, oh, I can sit in this chair, and you're relying on your quads. So instead of doing that, I want you to tuck. See the difference? This is the quads. This is activating more through the front of the body, creating a scoop. That's where I want you. Even if it means coming out of your knee bend a little bit. And then the last one I want to show you, oh yeah, this one's actually really tricky. We flow through it pretty fast usually. Up dog. So in up dog, I see folks, it's, hand, hand, foot, foot on the mat. So I'll come from down dog to plank. We do a chaturanga, and then up dog. So up dog, I see people with their shoulders here. That's not doing anything for you. You need to pull the shoulders away from the ears. Think about a pigeon when it's sort of like showing off for the girl pigeons. Heart forward, big opening through the chest. And you're squeezing the glutes really hard. You're squeezing the quads so that you don't hurt your low back here either. And then the best thing to come from Adho Mukha Svanasana, this is down dog. Urdhva Mukha Svanasana is up dog. So if you're flowing back and forth, to be able to do that lift like I just did, that's my favorite transition. So from down dog to up dog, if you can just flip the feet, you're actually getting, it's almost like a crunch through the abs. Unfortunately, when I'm on carpet, my mat moves a lot, but you get the idea. Now, if that feels impossible, if that feels really difficult, you can always inhale up dog. And then as you exhale, you can sort of bend through the knees, tuck the toes, and come up. That's your other option. You guys have questions?